I would go past that, and I'd like to make a few comment actually on what was being said before this issue was taken up. On the Honourable Bob Ray's statement, all I'd like to say is, yes, there was an announcement from the government that they would stop the use of heavy artillery and radio. What they do not understand is that up to now, up to this statement, the security forces of the Sri Lankan government, and I mean this is, if you look at a map and you document it, they were pushing the Tamil Tigers away from what was called the quote-unquote no-fire zone. In other words, there was fighting outside the zone. Even today, the LTT retreated with their heavy weapons, with whatever they have, they retreated into this zone. Right? There is a distinction because they retreated into this zone, taking with them the population. That they had been, some of these people have been actually driven from the west coast of Sri Lanka into this area, right across.
Are the Tigers?
Yes. They've been taking the population with them, claiming that the population wants to stay with them because they are the protectors of this population. Mm-hmm. So I want to clarify that the army, the security forces, their movement has been to get everybody, the LTT, into this safe zone. Once they have got them into that zone, they have said there will be no more heavy artillery because they are confined.
What about what led up to this situation, though? I mean, obviously there was a crisis now.
Which situation are we talking about?
the situation now, where there's a virtual civil war and many people are dying.
Well, I mean...
It's not a civil war, sir. Civil war means it's a different thing. This is not a civil war at all. This is a war against terrorism. This is not a civil war. In fact, the civilians, the Sinhala civilians are protecting Tamil people by, for example, 45,000 people have come out of the war zone. And the government, which is their word, the Sinhalese government, I don't say, but they say, the Sinhalese government, giving the food and medicine to the people, and not only for the civilians, all these 10 years, the LTT, which is running a de facto government, has been provided by the government of Sri Lanka, thinking these terrorists also is the Sri Lankan citizens.
You're painting a picture, though, that everything is really fine.
Of course.
But that's fine. Not what I mean, forgetting politicians and those who are particularly partisan, I've spoken to people for years. I mean,
there's only one problem in Sri Lanka.
But hold on, I mean, coming from the UK, I think it was more of an issue in Britain than it is in North America. There's still a link with South Asia. And I can remember going back, 30 years now, a very close friend of mine, Francis Ween, speaking at the United Nations about the Tamil people when no one was doing this. And he had stories that were terrifying about the treatment of Tamils in Sri Lanka. I don't think it was made up.
I will tell you one example. He was quoting, Mr. David was quoting about a Buddhist monk killing Mr. Bandaranaike. Yeah. How about the same LTT is killing our own Tamil people? He never talks about that. He's just pointing about a Buddhist monk killing about Prime Minister of Sri Lanka.
I did refer to moderate Tamil leaders being killed. I think that probably is true.
It is hundreds. It's Lakshman Kazagama, Neelam Tiruchel, Dr. Neelam Tiruchelvam, Amarthalingam, plus Yogeshwaran. Now hundreds of people. And again, they are not killed.
Are independent journalists allowed to go into Sri Lanka? No, I understand there are certain limitations. Sometimes there have to be.
So someone recorded.
Journalists being killed, journalists not being allowed into zones where perhaps atrocities are taking place?
Could I... Just
no?
In the reason, okay.
For this time being, because security.
I just want to...
Okay, one last point to you, then we'll come over.
Yeah, it's about the question of conversion. Yeah. She brought that up about, forced conversion. Now, that is a bill before Parliament, okay? The draft bill was there, and let me tell you that the Anglican Church in Sri Lanka, the Catholic Church in Sri Lanka, which are the two major Christian denominations, plus several other smaller, Christian churches, they had their input into this bill. And I'm surprised to say that they had their input, and these major Christian denominations are actually supportive of it.
That's not true.
I'd have to look closely.
No. What I mean is they had their input.
They want to get the support of the Western countries. That's why they are making this.
I have to look Anglicans maybe, but I'd have to. Anyway, I did promise.
They had their input
I'm not even going to go into that because it's honestly not worth 30 seconds of my time. But I will speak to the matter that is going on right now, right? Mr. Benedict talks of Tamils living in peace, that there's this war on terrorism, right? Before this moniker, the war on terrorism, that the Sri Lankan government so conveniently used in the situation happened, they used to call it an internal conflict because they did not want international bodies involved. After 9/11, they decided, well, let's rebrand this as the war on terrorism because I feel they did that because this... Sorry. They feel that this is a way that they can continue the atrocities against the Tamil people and still be able to use this moniker. And how do we know these things are happening? Read any of the reports by the UN, by the Human Rights Watch. I mean, I don't even know which quote to read you out here, but there's several statements that say that the situation is deplorable. And let's talk about the no-fire zone for a second. The government of Sri Lanka they designated the no-fire zone. They instructed Tamil civilians to go in, and then they went ahead and they bombed in there. That is a war crime. And there's actually, there's just so much that I have to talk to about intent. For example, the defense secretary said in an official interview to the BBC that nothing outside the safe zone should exist. He was pushed. Does that apply to hospitals? Yes, nothing outside the safe zone should exist. Then why are you bombing inside the safe zone?
Well, I heard that interview, and I have to say he was rather bellicose and aggressive to the BBC journalist, who I think was intimidated by the interview. But a lot of what he said was inflated language, and his English wasn't perfect. I've seen in other conflicts where, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm really not, but I've seen in other conflicts where the people who assume to have the power are always criticised. And the other side can do pretty much whatever they want to do, and it's always they're the poor victims. And if civilians are killed when there's an attempt to kill terrorists, then of course the government is blamed. Are you saying it's all the fault of the Sri Lankan government?
So let me say this. There's two parties to this conflict, and I certainly think that some of the actions of both parties cannot be defended. Right? But I do believe that the government does have the upper hand in the situation right now. I mean, look at some of the things that they've refused. Just over the weekend, I believe, they refused a call by the UN to send in a monitoring mission in there. Right? They are not letting in aid groups. They're not letting in independent media. The LTT has said, come in and report on what's going on. So what are they hiding? I mean, that's one of the issues that I have.
We're going to break here. We have plenty more time, I promise. Back in a few moments on the Michael Coran show. We'll see you very soon indeed. Welcome back, Michael Coren Show. It's half-time. We're discussing the issue of Sri Lanka, and of course, as you know, as we speak, demonstrations taking place throughout Canada. Has to be said, the Tamil diaspora tends not to be a particularly wealthy one. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude by saying that, but there are certain economic realities, and people have taken time off. They feel very strongly about what is going on. Very hard to understand the truth of a situation. We don't know the context and the subtext, and that's the fault of media, including us, I would say. Anyway, half-time, let's reintroduce the panel. David Poopalsingham, National Spokesperson, Canadian Tamil Congress. Manjula Selvarajaha is also from the Canadian Tamil Congress. She's the media coordinator. Lenin Benedict isn't. He's secretary, the Canadian Democratic Tamil Cultural Association. And Silva is a member of the Sri Lanka United National Association of Canada. So there are a lot of people watching here who know nothing about Sri Lanka, and they're saying, well, they all seem convincing. Who's telling the truth? So...
Yeah. You were talking about this, the people on the street all over the world. I mean, you mentioned a few times here. What bring these people to the road? The collective grief among the Tamil diaspora. We are watching a genocide committing against our own brothers and sisters in Sri Lanka.
Is it genocide?
It is genocide.
It's an attempt to wipe the Tamil people off the face of the earth.
It is to annihilate the Tamil people. It is to attempt to wipe out the entire Tamils from the Sri Lanka.
The population is what?
It's about 3 million. 3 to 3.5 million.
I mean, this is going to sound rather crass, but how many Tamils have been killed?
Over 100,000 Tamils have been killed. Out of this, over 100,000...
100,000 out of 3 million people. an attempt at genocide. It's horrible, but genocide means a deliberate attempt to exterminate, to expunge an entire people.
But if you have
in whole or substantial,
if there's a deliberate attempt to annihilate or to kill a particular person by ethnicity, by religion, it's defined as a genocide.
How many of those 100,000 would be actively involved with or supporting the Tamil Tigers?
Not many. Most of them are civilians. Where I come from, the eastern province, 90% of them are civilians. They were killed in bunches, 100 in one spot, 200 in another spot, 300 in another spot. These are mass
in the
murders.
1983 riots.
These are war crimes.
Riots,
the war crimes committed on them. United Nations recently released a report, and on the report they clearly said Sri Lankan government is committing war crimes. And he was talking about the civilians that are going in the safety area, Michael.
Yeah, he must be adding the killing of the Sinhalese also in the south, by killing the students, by blasting the schools, school buses, train. He must be adding that 1 lakh into that. Plus,
how many
LTT
have been killed on the other side?
Hundreds have been killed by, because, for example, the Bank of Ceylon, which is a criminal act of LTT, 800, 900 people were killed, and the train attacks, and so many.